The stars hung silent over the smoldering ruin of Carthes 9. Ash drifted where oceans once glittered, and the pale blue marble of a once-living world now spun like a corpse in the void. Admiral Vor-Kael stood on the command deck of his flagship, staring at the devastation with something between boredom and contempt. Another world, another species that dared resist the Empire, reduced to nothing but embers. Efficient, one of his officers reported in a clipped tone. Surface resistance extinguished in less than 6 rotations. Colonists negligible. Vor-Kael's mandibles twitched into the slightest curve of a grin. Predictable. These humans crumble quickly. They're stubborn but primitive. They mistake survival for strength. He turned from the viewport, his armor plates clicking as he paced. His staff avoided his gaze, accustomed to the subtle menace of his confidence. And Earth remains, still beating its chest, still defiant. They will fall faster than this backwater mud ball. He said it casually, as if announcing the weather. His subordinates chuckled, relieved to echo their leader's arrogance. 1 strike, perhaps 2, another officer offered. By next cycle, their homeworld will kneel. The alien admiral let their laughter echo, but he said nothing more. He didn't need to. The inevitability of conquest was woven into their empire's very identity. Humanity had been a curiosity, tolerated when they clung to their isolated system, ignored when they spread a handful of fragile colonies across the stars. But now they stood in the Empire's path, and Vor-Kael had little patience for insolence. When the fleet entered Sol space, there was no resistance at first. Only the looming curve of Earth below, a cradle of life, brilliant and fragile. Vor-Kael leaned forward in his command chair, hunger flickering in his 4 dark eyes. Scan for defenses. Minimal, Admiral. Their orbital platforms are outdated, scattered. They've left themselves naked. A ripple of cruel amusement passed over the bridge crew. This would be swift. The fleet fanned out like a closing claw around the pale blue world. Vor-Kael raised his hand and let it hang in the air, savoring the moment before the inevitable strike. But then the sensors pulsed, their calm tones replaced with an alarm that made every officer freeze. 1 vessel detected, the sensor chief said slowly. Large, unidentified class. Positioned above the planet. Vor-Kael's expression didn't change, but his voice lowered to a growl. 1 vessel. Yes, Admiral. The officer's claws rattled over his console. No escorts. No planetary fleet. Just 1. The screen magnified the object, and for the first time the bridge fell silent. It was massive, sleek, black as a rift in space, with no visible insignia. It did not move, did not speak, did not even raise its shields. It simply waited. Laughter broke the tension. A bluff, 1 commander scoffed. A ceremonial relic. They display it to look stronger than they are. Vor-Kael wanted to believe it, but something in the stillness of that ship unsettled him. It was not fear. He did not fear prey, but irritation. Insolence. The humans dared to confront him with a single vessel as if mocking the weight of his fleet. Destroy it, Vor-Kael ordered at last. His voice carried the finality of a death sentence. Dozens of alien warships angled their cannons and released a storm of fire. Energy lances screamed through the void, converging on the human vessel in a cascade bright enough to scorch the eyes. The crew leaned forward, eager to see the hull rip apart. But the ship did not move. The fire reached it and dissipated. No explosion. No damage. The energy washed across the hull, as if the ship had swallowed a whole. Silence crushed the bridge. Impossible, muttered 1 officer. No material could. The human vessel stirred. Not rushed, not panicked, but with the calmness of a predator stretching awake. Its weapon systems lit, sharp pinpricks of white. There was no roar, no drama, only precision. The first shot pierced an alien cruiser cleanly through its core, splitting it like paper. The second vaporized a destroyer before its crew could scream. 3 more ships followed, each obliterated in less time than it took to breathe. Vor-Kael rose slowly to his feet. Around him, panic broke out. Shields failing. They've locked onto us. They're inside our systems. Silence. Vor-Kael snapped, but his command voice no longer carried the certainty it once had. He watched the human ship methodically disassemble his fleet, as if each strike had been calculated years ago. There was no waste, no hesitation, only a terrifying efficiency. Then a transmission arrived. The bridge lights dimmed, and a voice, calm, steady, unmistakably human, filled the air. "You should not have come here." The words were not shouted. They carried no threats, no bravado. Just fact. A quiet inevitability. Vor-Kal felt a chill run through his armored spine. For the first time in his career, the shape of the war shifted in his mind. He was not the hunter anymore. His crew looked to him for orders, their arrogance bleeding into fear. He forced his voice into steel. Regroup. Overwhelm them with numbers. Break them before they. Another cruiser disintegrated in the corner of his view, cut apart by a beam faster than thought. The human ship had not even shifted position. Vor-Kal's throat tightened. One ship should not have been capable of this. One ship should not have been allowed to exist. And yet, there it was, immovable, implacable, answering centuries of conquest with the patience of a world that had waited too long to be tested. The battle had only just begun, but Vor-Kal understood with a sick twist in his gut. The Empire had already made its first mistake. The humans had been underestimated. And now, it was too late to undo what had been set in motion. The silence after the transmission lingered in the bones of every officer on the alien flagship. Vor-Kal remained frozen, staring at the screen as another fragment of his once proud fleet drifted into the void. The human ship did not pursue the retreating survivors, nor did it broadcast further threats. It simply waited, as though certain the Empire would return, and equally certain that the outcome would not change. On Earth, far below the black ship's shadow, the atmosphere was not of panic, but of discipline. The world had been preparing for this moment longer than anyone beyond its orbit could imagine. In a bunker deep beneath the European continent, Commander Elias Cross stood before a wall of displays showing alien fleet movements. His uniform was plain, marked by no glittering rank or ceremonial flourish. Humanity had abandoned vanity when survival became its only concern. His voice was measured, carrying the kind of weight that came from years of restraint. "Status of the decoy colonies?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. A younger officer, eyes hollow from sleepless nights, replied, "All gone, sir." The Empire followed the pattern exactly. Losses 3 million lives. Cross closed his eyes briefly. To others, it might have looked like calm acceptance, but those who knew him recognized the flicker of grief behind the silence. He carried every death like a personal burden, and yet he never let it bend his posture. "And their sacrifice bought us this moment," he said finally. His tone was not callous. It was reverent, a vow spoken aloud. Across the table, Dr. Hannah Sorrell adjusted her glasses, her fingers restless on the data pad. She was not military, but her mind had shaped much of the technology, now making the Empire bleed. They'll return in force. This was only their probing hand. They'll believe what they always believe, that numbers can drown anything. Her voice was steady, but the pallor of her face betrayed exhaustion. "They don't understand yet, but they will." Elias regarded her for a moment. "Do you?" She hesitated, caught off guard. "Do I what?" "Understand what we've become," he said. His tone was sharp but not cruel, as if testing the truth in her heart. Hannah lowered her gaze, thinking of the years of secret construction, the hidden fleets sleeping in the dark between stars, the endless drills, the rehearsals of catastrophe. She thought of the billions who lived their lives unaware that their existence was protected by layers of deception. "I understand enough," she whispered. "Enough to know that the galaxy isn't ready for us." Above them, the lone ship shifted its orientation, not to attack, but to reposition with a grace that seemed almost casual. The vessel was more than steel and firepower. It was a promise, a symbol that humanity would no longer be the quiet observer in the galactic periphery. Vor-Kal's fleet limped away from the battle, scorched and humiliated. Inside his quarters, the admiral sat rigid at his desk, claws pressed into the metal surface hard enough to leave dents. His officers waited outside, whispering their fears, while he replayed the moment when his cruisers dissolved in silence. He had faced countless foes, but none had unsettled him so deeply. What gnawed at him most was not the loss itself, but the manner of it, calculated, clinical, devoid of triumph. The humans had killed without joy, without anger. They had killed as if it were a chore already mastered. His comms console buzzed, and the distorted faces of the Imperial Council filled the screen. They demanded an explanation, voices overlapping in furious disbelief. Vor-Kal endured their questions, their insults, their dismissals. He let them rage until one quieted enough to be heard. "You shame us, Admiral. One world, one species, one ship, and you falter." Vor-KL leaned forward, mandibles twitching. "You don't understand," he said, each word heavy. "This was not a victory of chance. It was precision. They knew us before we arrived. They let us burn their colonies. They made us think them weak. And when we came for their heart, they revealed their hand." The council erupted with derision, but Vor-KL cut them short. His voice was iron. "This was no accident. We have awakened something that was waiting for us." The line went dead, leaving him in the hush of his quarters. He felt the beginnings of a new weight in his chest, not yet fear, but its sharper cousin, doubt. Back on Earth, Commander Cross walked the dim corridors of the bunker alone, his steps echoing. He paused at a viewing platform where one of the monitors showed a live feed of the stars. He spoke softly, almost to himself, but the microphone carried his voice to the command staff. "We've hidden long enough. The Empire believes they've glimpsed our strength, but they've seen nothing yet. What they faced today was only a single finger of the hand." Hannah appeared beside him, her face lit by the pale glow of the stars. "Do you think we're ready?" she asked. It was not a scientific question, but a human one, heavy with all the weight of history. Elias didn't answer immediately. He thought of the burned colonies, of the sacrifices made in silence, of the eyes of children who would never know the cost of their survival. "Readiness isn't a choice anymore," he said finally. "It's who we are now." The transmission from the alien empire came hours later. No apology, no retreat, only a declaration that Earth would be erased for its insolence. It was the same voice that had demanded obedience from countless worlds before, dripping with arrogance. But this time, when the words faded, the humans did not scramble or panic. They listened in silence, and then Elias Cross gave a single nod. "Let them come," he said. His voice carried no anger, no fire, just certainty. The human ship above Earth adjusted its position once more, and deep in the void, hidden gates stirred awake. Humanity had not placed its hopes in one ship, no matter how formidable. It had built an arsenal scattered in shadows, waiting for the moment the galaxy's gaze fell upon them. Vor-KL, pacing in his quarters light years away, could not shake the feeling that the silence from the humans was not relief, but patience. The kind of patience that belonged not to prey, but to predators who had finally chosen to show their teeth. The galaxy did not yet understand, but soon it would. Vor-KL had not slept since the retreat. He sat alone in his private chamber, the dim glow of data streams painting his carapace in shifting colors. Every battle he had ever fought, every enemy he had crushed, began to feel like the training matches of a hatchling compared to what he had just witnessed. His claws twitched against the console as he replayed the human ship's attack frame by frame. No wasted movement, no flourish, just quiet annihilation. He turned his gaze toward a data archive long forbidden to most within the Empire. Records of Earth, captured and stored from centuries of observation, unimportant enough to be forgotten. Now he studied them as though they contained the answers to a riddle he had once mocked. Footage of trenches filled with mud and corpses flickered across the screen. Smoke, explosions, men clawing over barbed wire into machine fire, dying by the thousands for a few meters of soil. Vor-KL leaned closer, his mandibles rigid. "They slaughtered themselves," he murmured. He skipped forward, watching mushroom clouds blossom into blinding suns, then cut to tanks rolling through ruined cities, soldiers raising banners over shattered rubble. His claws tightened into the desk until the metal warped. "They've practiced extinction on their own kind." For the first time, he understood why their single ship had seemed so calm. It had not needed to roar to terrify. Humanity had carried war within itself long before reaching the stars. They had forged efficiency in blood. The door chime broke his trance. He closed the archive before admitting his second-in-command. The officer hesitated before speaking. "The High Council requests your presence, Admiral. They demand justification for your interpretation of events." Vor-KL rose, his movements slow, deliberate. "They do not want interpretation. They want reassurance." When he appeared before the council, their chamber buzzed with overlapping voices, arrogant and dismissive. One counselor sneered, his jeweled carapace gleaming. "Your failure has cost us prestige across 3 sectors. Rumors spread that you were repelled by primitives. Speak. Is this true?" Vor-KL's eyes burned. It was no failure of will. "We faced a weapon unlike any I have seen. It tore through fleets as though cutting parchment. And the humans, they orchestrated this. Every colony we burned was bait. Every scream we ignored a lure. They made us bleed exactly where they wished." The chamber erupted in laughter, in scoffing disbelief. Another counselor leaned forward, his voice dripping with contempt. One ship does not endanger an empire. You magnify a skirmish into prophecy. The humans are vermin, undisciplined, scattered. Crush them, and their ashes will vanish in the void. Vor-Kael slammed his clawed hand into the railing, the metal sparking under the force. The chamber stilled. You blind yourselves. You cling to arrogance while a predator sharpens its teeth at your throat. I have seen their wars. They revel in loss, adapt through disaster, and wield patience as a blade. They do not fight as prey. They fight as a species that has survived its own self-destruction. The silence that followed was suffocating. Finally, the High Chancellor leaned back, voice smooth with superiority. Your fear clouds you. You have forgotten what empire means. We are the galaxy's order. One rebellious world will not shift the balance. Vor-Kael saw it then. Nothing he said would matter. The council had decided the humans were beneath consideration, and their pride was thicker than reason. He bowed stiffly, concealing the fury that burned inside him. As he turned to leave, he whispered to himself, "And that pride will drown us." Far away in the bunker beneath Earth's crust, Elias Cross stood over a display showing intercepted transmissions. The Empire's council meeting scrolled across the screen in fragmented bursts, translated by human algorithms. He read their mockery, their dismissal of Vor-Kael's warnings, and his jaw tightened. "Divide at the top," he muttered. "It's what we counted on." Dr. Hannah Sorrell sat nearby, exhaustion lining her face, but her eyes bright with focus. "They won't unite against us quickly enough. Their pride won't allow it. But Vor-Kael, he's different. He sees us for what we are." Elias nodded slowly. "Which makes him dangerous, because the others will call him a coward. He may become desperate, unpredictable." A comms officer approached, nervous. "Sir, we've tracked their mobilization. They're massing fleets in the outer sectors. They want to prove their superiority publicly." "Then let them," Elias said. His voice was quiet, almost tired, but carried the weight of inevitability. "We've been patient for a century. A few more weeks won't change the outcome." Hannah glanced at him. "Do you ever feel it, Elias? The weight of what we're about to unleash?" His expression softened. "Every day. But this isn't about victory. It's about survival." The galaxy thought silence meant weakness. They never understood silence was preparation. In a dim outpost along the Empire's frontier, Vor-Kael returned to his fleet. The crews straightened as he passed, but he could see doubt in their eyes, the same doubt gnawing at his own insides. He didn't chastise them. Instead, he called his senior officers into the strategy chamber and pulled up the footage of Earth's wars once more. They watched in grim silence, nuclear fire, fleets of bombers, the endless churn of bodies in endless fields of death. One young officer shifted uncomfortably. "Why are you showing us this? These are ancient. Irrelevant." Vor-Kael fixed him with a stare. "Irrelevant. This is their training. This is their history. Do you not see? They are not frightened of destruction. They were born in it. Every loss teaches them. Every death sharpens them. And they remember." The room fell into silence. The officers could not deny the unease that twisted in their stomachs. Vor-Kael turned back to the footage, his voice low but clear. "We have awakened something that cannot be put back to sleep. And when the full weight of humanity rises, the galaxy will learn fear in a way it never has." On Earth, in the bunker's stillness, Elias Cross studied the stars projected above him. His reflection wavered against their light, his face a mixture of weariness and iron resolve. Around him, the command staff waited for his word. "We move when they're ready," he said softly. "Not before. Let them gather every fleet they have. Let them believe their numbers will protect them. When they arrive, they will see what we've hidden. And then," he paused, his eyes narrowing, "the galaxy will no longer ask what humanity is capable of. They will ask how long we've been waiting." Vor-Kael stood at his own viewport light years away, gazing at the same stars, feeling the weight of inevitability pressing against him. For the first time in his long service, he felt not the anticipation of conquest, but the dread of survival. Somewhere deep in his gut, he knew the truth. The next battle would not be fought for victory. It would be fought to see who remained when the fire finally dimmed. And the humans, calm, patient, mercilessly efficient, would not dim easily. The void rippled with fire. Fleets larger than any seen in millennia assembled at the Empire's command, tens of thousands of warships drawn from every corner of their dominion. They formed a wall of steel and arrogance, stretching across the stars like a continent adrift in the dark. The Council broadcast their triumphal declarations across subspace, promising to erase Earth in one decisive strike. Billions watched from distant colonies, believing the myth of invincibility would be restored. Vor-Kal stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the endless armada with no pride in his chest. He felt only the hollow weight of inevitability. His warnings had been ignored, twisted into mockery, and now the Empire had staked its survival on a spectacle. They did not gather fleets to win, they gathered them to be seen winning. And against humanity, spectacle was suicide. The first rift opened like a scar across the battlefield. Space itself tore apart, light bending, shadows stretching. From the wound slipped a human vessel, black and silent, drifting into formation. Then another, and another. They poured through the fractures in space until the Empire's wall faced not one ship, but hundreds, then thousands. No fanfare, no declaration. Just a quiet, inexorable arrival. Gasps and panicked reports filled the bridge. Impossible, wormholes on this scale cannot be sustained. Admiral, they are everywhere, behind us, above us, inside our formations. Vor-Kal said nothing. He watched as the humans arranged their fleet with mathematical precision, not a single ship out of alignment, every angle calculated. He could almost feel the intelligence guiding them, vast and cold, as though humanity itself had become an engine of war. The Empire struck first, as pride demanded. Beams of energy lanced across the void, missile storms and plasma surges turning space into a storm of fire. Thousands of human vessels should have been consumed. Instead, the projectiles bent off shields that shimmered like water, redirected into nothingness. The human fleet absorbed the fury and answered with silence. Then came their counterstrike. No blinding spectacle, no wasted life, only surgical, merciless efficiency. One Empire battleship dissolved into slag, its reactor imploding without warning. Another systems froze mid-command, then tore itself apart as its own weapons detonated. Squadrons of human drones erupted from hidden bays, weaving through enemy formations with inhuman precision, carving ships into fragments before their gunners even found a target. The Empire's wall collapsed in minutes. Formations disintegrated, admirals screamed contradictory orders, soldiers prayed to gods that no longer seemed to listen. To Vor-Kal, it felt less like a battle and more like dissection. The humans weren't fighting, they were dismantling piece by piece, as if demonstrating how fragile the Empire had always been. On Earth, Elias Cross stood at the heart of command, his voice calm as chaos unfolded across galaxies. Target their carriers. Sever command relays. Leave their transports intact. Civilians are not the enemy. Every word was measured, every order precise. He did not shout, did not lean on bravado. His authority came from the certainty that no move would be wasted. Hannah Sorrell watched the feeds, her hands trembling as the Empire's losses mounted in sickening numbers. We could end them now. Wipe them out completely. Elias shook his head. His expression carried no triumph, only grim resolve. Extermination is easy. Mercy is harder. And if we take everything from them, we will become what they always thought we were. Above the battlefield, Vor-Kal's ship shuddered under impact. Consoles flickered, crew shouted, but he remained still, staring into the storm. Around him, entire sectors of the fleet vanished into silence. He could no longer count the dead, they fell too quickly. A voice cut across all channels. It was human, steady calm. Your empire is finished. Resist, and you will not endure another hour. Surrender, and you will live. The words froze the crew. They looked to Vor-Kal, their fear naked. He could hear the unspoken question in their silence, fight or live. His pride demanded one answer, but the truth clawed at him with greater force. He had seen their history, their patience, their ruthless will. To fight now was not courage, but denial. Vor-Kal's throat tightened as he gave the order. Transmit surrender. The words tasted like ash, but when they left his mandibles, a strange calm followed. Around him, the crew exhaled, half in relief, half in shame. Across the fleet, pockets of resistance faltered, then fell quiet as commanders realized their admiral had bowed. The war ended not with an explosion, but with silence, sudden, shocking silence. In the Empire's core worlds, riots erupted as news spread. Some called Vor-Kael a traitor, others a savior who spared them extinction. The High Council collapsed in chaos, torn apart by its own arrogance, while human fleets hung in orbit over a dozen key systems, immovable as mountains. Vor-Kael found himself summoned not to a prison, but to a chamber unlike any he had known. Human delegates stood with unadorned uniforms, plain faces carrying the weariness of those who had not sought conquest but been forced into it. Elias Cross himself regarded him with steady eyes. "You expect execution," Elias said, his voice carrying neither threat nor pity. "But we don't want your extinction. You know your people, your systems. You will help govern them under our oversight. The alternative is anarchy, and we have no interest in ruling corpses." Vor-Kael struggled to find words. "After all we've done to you, why mercy?" Elias studied him in silence before replying. "Because mercy is the only thing that separates us from becoming you." The answer struck harder than any weapon. Vor-Kael bowed his head, not in shame, but in a dawning respect he had never expected to feel. The galaxy adjusted slowly to its new order. Empires that once mocked humanity now sent envoys in hushed tones, treaties in trembling hands. Where there had been arrogance, there was now silence, the silence of a predator's shadow. On Earth, beneath the surface of the planet that had waited centuries to reveal itself, Hannah stood beside Elias at the viewing platform. Stars shimmered across the dark sky, distant, countless, unclaimed. "We never wanted this," Hannah whispered. "No," Elias agreed. His gaze was heavy, distant. "But wanting doesn't matter. The galaxy came for us, and now it knows what it found." Vor-Kael's voice echoed in his memory, words spoken when he surrendered, they practiced on themselves. Humanity had not risen from peace into war, they had risen from war into something colder, something the galaxy was only beginning to grasp. Elias placed his hands behind his back, his silhouette stark against the stars. "We were prey once. We learned patience. We learned silence. But the galaxy mistook silence for weakness. That mistake will never be made again." The stars shone on, indifferent witnesses. For the first time in its history, humanity looked outward not as wanderers, but as rulers. And the galaxy, shaken and broken, held its breath, waiting to see what they would choose to become.